In 2016, when Trump won the first time, much was made of the fact that Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote by 2 percentage points. The Electoral College may have chosen Trump, but the majority of Americans didn't. In 2020, he lost the popular vote to Joe Biden by more than 4 points, and he lost the election. But this year, he is projected to have narrowly won the popular vote. If projections hold, it'll be the first time a Republican has won the popular vote in 20 years. I'm joined now by two very smart people, the New York Times opinion columnist Ezra Klein, the author of the book Why We're Polarized, and David Frum, a staff writer at The Atlantic and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Ezra, so how, first, fundamentally, how much of this was incumbency penalty that it seems to have affected every election in the last 18 months? And how much of this is something special that we should analyze?
So if you chart how every incumbent government has done in elections, you say over the past 15 months, 2 years, virtually every one of them gets annihilated in the election, by much more, frankly, than the Democrats did this time. So the Tories in UK do terribly. You look north, Justin Trudeau in Canada is incredibly unpopular. The government in Germany is falling apart. We're seeing center-right and center-left governments go down. So if you look at the coalition here, one very simple way of thinking about it is in 2020 and 2024, you have very similar coalitions in the election. And Trump is doing much better in 2020 also among Hispanic and Black voters than people expected. But in 2020, Trump is the incumbent. There's a pandemic. People are mad at him. He's not very good at being president. So you have this coalition, but Trump has a minus 3 point incumbent penalty. Democrats win by 4, and they win the election. This year, Biden is president. The Biden-Harris administration are the incumbents. People are mad. It's a post-inflation period. We're seeing angry electorates at incumbents everywhere. Call it again a minus 3, minus 2 incumbent penalty. Democrats lose by 1 to 2 points in the popular vote, which is what the projections show. So on that level, maybe you don't need to explain that much at all. But here's why I don't just take that and throw it around myself like a shawl and comfort myself to sleep. They lost by 1.5 points in the battleground states, right? When they were actually able to keep it very narrow compared to a lot of other incumbent governments.
175,000 votes in those 3 states would have flipped the electoral college.
Yes, and they probably lose the popular vote maybe by 1.5 points-ish, right? So that means strategic decisions could have really mattered here. When you're talking about a swing of 2 percentage points of a vote, that is not something that only structure can explain. It is actually, they were actually able to keep it close enough that maybe doing something different would have mattered.
Right, that's an interesting point. The point is not that it was a blowout, and that's why the Democrats should be soul-searching. It wasn't a blowout. They could have won this. Mm-hmm. And David, what about the economy? I mean, why is it that with what is unarguably the strongest economy in the world at this point, it didn't work? Was it a time lag? Was it that inflation matters a lot more than we thought it would?
If Donald Trump had presided over this economy, as he soon will, he would have said again and again, this is the greatest economy since the 1960s. Things are great. Unemployment. The Democrats are inhibited. That if there is someone in America who is sad, it is impossible for a Democratic president and a Democratic administration to speak positively about what they've done. It is a remark. I'm not a Democrat. I marvel at this because there's so many veto points in the party. And this creates a very dangerous situation now. What do Democrats love on this earth more than soul searching? I don't know. They love it. It may be mutual accusation and mutual recrimination. That's the one thing they like more than social, blaming each other. They hate each other. It's a very messy coalition, and they're now about to turn on each other. Should we have gone left on populism? Should we blame this part of our coalition or that part of our coalition? And meanwhile, the emergency is going to start immediately. Donald Trump is going to come to office and immediately pardon the January 6th criminals. He is immediately going to abandon America's commitment to Ukraine. He is already signaling to the Chinese, Taiwan is yours if you want it. And of course, the floodgates of corruption are going to be massively open. How will he pay the $500 million he owes in civil judgments? Will he sell Truth Social to somebody? The Saudis, Elon Musk at some giant markup. The crisis is going to be here, and the Democrats are going to be looking inward when the country needs protection from what Donald Trump is going to use his flimsy margin to do.
Do you think that, how much is it worth the Democrats looking at? The 2 key factors, it seems to me, are the loss of the Hispanic vote and the loss of the youth vote. And they overlap a bit because Hispanics are younger on average. But those seem the 2 kind of the big shifts, almost 10 points in both cases?
I would really say there's one key factor, which is an ongoing educational realignment. Democrats have gone from winning working class voters, right? That's sort of the history of the Democratic Party. It's the party of the working class, to losing them. Democrats will have a significant margin among voters who went to college and a significant loss among voters who didn't. It is that structure, right, of the electorate that is leading them to lose Hispanic voters, leading them to lose more black voters, right? The educational polarization has breached racial walls, right? The fact that Trump is assembling a more multiracial coalition, but this is also part of why they lost women by more. They didn't lose women, but they didn't have the margins among women that they wanted to. So
why? Because
it's the same thing. Democrats are alienating a working class electorate year by year, worse and worse, that they need to win. The working class is very, very big in this country, and it's also at the core of the Democratic Party's self-identity. One reason I don't totally agree with David on this question of whether or not Democrats need to do some soul searching is, look, you go back now through 3 elections, right? 2016, 2020, 2024. In each of these elections, the win in either direction is very, very close, right? In 2016, Trump loses the popular vote and wins on, a butterfly's flap of its wings in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan. Probably James Comey does not send that letter and Trump loses, and American history is very, very different. In 2020, as big as the Democratic popular vote margin was, the swing state margin was quite narrow. In this year, too, the swing state margin is quite narrow. If you want to end what feels like a growing emergency in American politics, and I do agree with David that Trump is very dangerous and a lot of very dangerous things are about to happen, the Democratic Party doesn't need 50 or 51 or 52% of the vote. It needs to build something more durable than this. And in order to do that, it needs to stop bleeding voters that it is bleeding at an accelerating level who are supporting a candidate that is so anathema to Democrats that they can't even imagine. They can't even cross the empathic gap to what would make Donald Trump appealing. When that is happening, when you have that kind of cultural distance between you and people you need to represent, you have to really ask what closes that cultural gap. I've thought a lot about the fact that Democrats are more culturally comfortable with Liz Cheney this year than with Joe Rogan, right? That's showing you something that has really changed.
All right. When we come back, we're going to ask what is the Democratic strategy to do just that when we come back.